Hi guys, my name is Alex Wright. I'm the brand director at Revgear. I'm also a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt under Angel Lopez at Halo Jiu Jitsu. So the subject of today's video is the gear that you need to start Jiu-Jitsu. And when I'm talking about Jiu-Jitsu, I'm talking about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, not Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. If you're over here doing traditional Jiu-Jitsu or you're not sure which one's which, I suggest you check that out. But this one is specifically for the modern incarnation of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. We're going to talk about two sides of Jiu-Jitsu. We're going to talk about Gi Jiu-Jitsu and No Gi Jiu-Jitsu. Now, many clubs nowadays do both types of Jiu-Jitsu, sometimes on alternate nights, sometimes even on the same night. The skills are largely very similar, to a degree interchangeable, but some clubs do solely Gi Jiu-Jitsu and some clubs do solely No Gi Jiu-Jitsu. But you're going to find the information that you need whether you're doing one, the other, or both. Now the first piece of equipment that you need, and I specifically call it equipment because in Jiu-Jitsu the gi is equipment. It's not just a uniform. You use this gi in a whole number of ways and probably beyond the scope of the video. It's worth mentioning, guys, that a Jiu-Jitsu gi is not the same type of gi as many other gis that look similar but are not cut the same, they're not the same length, they're not the same dimensions, and to a large degree don't have the same materials. Just the other night we had a guy start at the club. He was black belt in another gi martial art and had those little ties inside his jacket. The material was completely different and this kind of obstructed his ability to train. So when you're starting in Jiu-Jitsu, just make sure you buy an actual Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gi. It's so much easier than it was when I first started, where you had to rely on someone to go to Brazil and bring one back on a plane. Now you can get one very easily online and get the thing that's right for your sport. Grips in Jiu-Jitsu are absolutely paramount. You grip the lapels from both ends, the back of the collar, the sleeves, elbows, all manner of areas of the gi and the pants, which we're going to get to in a second. So the gi is an important piece of your equipment for training Jiu-Jitsu. In fact, it's not just important, it's absolutely essential. You literally cannot do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu without a gi. So your choice of gi is going to be important. Quick note on gi sizing. The original sizing system for gis was A1, 2, 3, 4, and you can loosely think of this as small, medium, large, extra large. Same with the kids, M, 1, 2, 3, 4, and for female, F, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can think again, 1 small, 2 medium, 3 large, 4 extra large. Most brands now have gone the other end, so extra small, A0, extra large, A5, extra large, A6. That's a rough guide, but the thing that you really need to know with gis is about the fit. How a gi fits will have a major bearing on how you perform in it, and if you find a gi that's just too tight or it's too loose, it actually will impact your ability to use it in a role, in class, and so on and so forth. Now lastly, it would be worth mentioning that some brands do this L and W system or L and H system and are starting to do different fits. I would largely say that this is a waste of time, because no matter how many combinations we go with, it often ends up that unless you are going to go down the bracket of doing suit sizes, then you will always find one type of gi that fits you better than another, regardless of whether they've put an L or a W into the size range. So I would always recommend, whenever possible, to get to try one on or have a real close look at that size guide. Revgear spent 2 years developing its gis. We spend a lot of time getting feedback from professionals all over the world, professional jiu-jitsu fighters, on the fit, and we think we've come out with a fit which is pretty universally perfect for most people. But if you're particularly small or particularly large, you might want to check out the overall sizing, but we've gone with the traditional sizing, which seems to work for the majority of people. Here at Rev Gear, we do 4 types of gi, and most brands do 4 types of gi. A starter or a basic entry-level gi, what's known as a club gi, which is kind of like a second-level gi, a competition gi, which is a very, very lightweight gi, and I'm just going to dig into that for a second. The reason you have a very lightweight gi for competition is because when you weigh into your category bracket, your weight category, you weigh in wearing the gi, so the lighter the gi is, makes it easier to weigh in, especially if you're on the borderline between 2 weight brackets, so that becomes important. And lastly, many brands, including our own, have what we call a top of the line gi. These will often have loads of bells and whistles, additional elements to them, which make them more expensive. They might use more expensive fabrics, etc., etc., which will make them at the top of the price bracket. Now, in practical terms, there isn't really that much difference between the bottom end, the top end in terms of function. So any one of those types of gis can be used as your first gi, but I would generally recommend either the first starter gi or the second gi to get going. However, it really doesn't make that much difference. Moving on to the pants, which are extremely important in Jiu-Jitsu. Just like the jacket, the pants are a piece of equipment. First of all, a note on fit. If you take this one, which is a customized version of the top of the range Rev Gear gi, it's very important that it comes with good belt loops, because this cord is the only thing holding them up. If they're positioned wrong or they're not good quality, then they'll come off. You absolutely need to make sure that you buy quality pants. 10 ounce is good for club use, for day-to-day use. There's 2 types of fabric largely used, either 100% cotton or ripstop. There's neither one which is better than the other. Ripstop is better in hot weather. Cotton tends to be a little warmer, a little bit more comfortable. It's certainly in colder climes. Other things are things like reinforcements at the end of your pants, because again, just like before, people will grip them, and often reinforcements on the knees are useful. On a lot of top end gis, you'll see things like pearl weave, different type of fabric in the gusset, which makes them very, very strong and also adds a level of comfort to them. Overall, getting a quality gi, something that you're comfortable training in, is going to generally elevate your jiu-jitsu training experience, and there's nothing worse than having an ill-fitting gi made of cheap materials which shrinks to hell. So make sure that you buy a good quality gi, and it doesn't matter whether you go to the bottom end of the scale or the top end of the scale, as long as the brand have built it with great quality, great materials, and thought about the fit, it should work out well for you. The next thing we need to talk about are belts. Now, it's going to be a long time before you get one of these, a black belt. So this belt right here, this white belt, is going to be something that you're going to be stuck with for at least a year, probably 2, maybe longer. So one of the characteristics of a jiu-jitsu belt is you will see this black panel at the end of it, and I've just put a white tag on it because this is part of your grading system where you'll move through to 4 of these before you'll move up to your next color belt. Now, different instructors grade in different ways. That's not the purpose of this video. But what is worth mentioning is, on a lot of starter gis where the belt comes free with the gi, quite often, and especially some of those brands on those shopping channels, give you the cheapest piece of rubbish they possibly can as a belt. And the belt is a piece of equipment. Just like the gi, you will be grabbing the belt. The belt will be used for grips. You will be using it for leverage. There was all manner of situations where the belt actually is used in a role or in technical parts of your training. So if your belt is essentially a piece of paper rope, it's not going to be pleasant for you, it's not going to be pleasant for your training partner. So getting a good quality belt for your gi, even a white belt, is extremely important. And bear in mind that you're going to have this for a while. Rev Gear, with some of its starter gis, does give a belt away, but we use the exact same belt that we would sell on the open market. But I will warn you, not all brands do that. If you think your belt is inferior or low quality, I heavily suggest buying a good quality one, especially if you're at the start of your jiu-jitsu journey. Lastly, within the gi territory, we are going to talk about what is largely seen as a piece of no gi equipment, which is a rash guard. Now, of course, when I get into no gi, all of this information remains true, but I'm talking specifically about rash guards, which are often worn underneath the gi. Now, the downside of wearing a rash guard underneath your gi is it makes the whole experience a little bit hotter. And if you're in hot climates, you might be like, oh, I don't want to wear that because I'm going to sweat profusely. But the reality is this: gi material, no matter which weave it is not particularly soft. Once it's been washed a few times, it will start rubbing against your skin. When you're getting pushed into those mats, when you're grinding, searching for underhooks, having various different parts of your body grabbed by your opponent or your training partner, then sooner or later this is going to scratch into your skin. If you're doing a lot of guard work, a lot of rolling on the ground, then this rubs against your skin. This is a risk of getting skin infections, and most jiu-jitsu clubs will be very, very, very keen on good hygiene. Having a rash guard, an additional barrier between your skin and your gi, is a really good idea. Now, there's two basic types of rash guard. There's long sleeve and short sleeve. The long sleeves give you more protection. The short sleeves, allow you to air yourself a little bit better. This is a matter of personal choice. But when we're talking about rash guards, let's go back to what actually a rash guard is. They were developed for surfing originally, and it is the idea of avoiding rashes, avoiding cuts, grazes off from various different places. So they need to be made of a relatively robust material. They need a bit of stretch in the fabric. They need to have strong stitching. Now, you do see rash guards with multiple different panels. You see all manner of designs. The panels, if they have weak points, can be a problem. So I generally think the fewer panels, the better. But that's a personal thought. Generally speaking, you should have at least one rash guard if you're doing gi jiu-jitsu. And I would encourage most people to wear them under their gi for their day-to-day training. If you're just doing a technical class and it's really hot, you can probably get away without one. But if you're doing any amount of drilling, rolling, something with a lot of movement in it, make sure you put one of these on underneath your gi jacket. Okay, so now we're going to move on to specifically for no gi. We've been talking about gi for a few minutes, let's move on to no gi. So the first piece of equipment you absolutely must have no gi is a pair of shorts. This is pretty much the same as having a gi for gi jiu-jitsu. That's the back, there's the front. This is a typical pair of no gi shorts from the new Rev Gear Grizzly range. We have here a few elements to these. They come in various different lengths, but the fashion at the moment is to have a mid-length short. Generally above the knee in no gi is seen as preferable. You might have seen guys wearing the really tight ballet tudo shorts. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter. This is just a piece of kit to wear under grappling conditions. Our version has anti-ride material on the inside. When we say ride, they get grabbed a lot, they'll get pulled, they'll get moved, so you don't want them to come down. Most no gi shorts will have a draw cord in them to secure them at the top. A good pair of these shorts will use a reasonably robust material. Now, I will say there's a lot of no gi shorts on the market at the moment, and a lot of them are made, in my opinion, of substandard materials. They're made of such lightweight materials that they're not really suitable for grappling. These are often seen on those big shopping channels that are very, very popular out there, and they're often a wide variety of designs, quite often rendered, not really actual shots of the shorts. And I'll quite often see shorts that I don't think are really suitable for grappling. They might be saying that they're jiu-jitsu or MMA shorts, but actually it's clear that whoever made them has never done a day on the mat in their life, because they're not going to last 2 minutes on a mat. So when choosing a pair of shorts, go for good quality every single time. Buy cheap, buy twice, probably 3 or 4 times in this market space. No gi shorts, specifically no gi shorts, should have as little on them to catch against your opponent as humanely possible. You're going to spend most of your time in all sorts of weird and wonderful positions in jiu-jitsu, so you want as little to catch or come undone and as little velcro as possible. One trend that has happened very much in no gi jiu-jitsu over the last few years is to eliminate velcro. Velcro used to be used all over the place in MMA shorts, and now there is definitely a trend towards removing it entirely. Rev Gear hasn't been using Velcro in its no gi shorts for quite some time now, and thankfully a lot of other brands are now following suit, but elimination of Velcro is a good move because Velcro has sharp edges and can create cuts and abrasions. Lastly, you want good quality at the ends of the shorts, because these are going to get grabbed. Even however illegal it may be, it's still going to happen, so you don't want these to shred or come apart. As you can see here, that's like one piece of material all the way around, so it's very unlikely that it's going to rip. So that is no gi shorts. Now the next piece of kit for no gi, which you'll see quite regularly, are what's known as spats. These are essentially a rash guard for your legs. Back in the day when I first started doing no gi jiu-jitsu, most people would just get onto a mat in shorts like I've just shown you, and then their cuts and abrasions would be on their knees and their feet. So the thing what spats do is essentially give you a rash guard for your legs. This is a pair of women's spats, as it happens. Yeah, they have multiple panels in them for ease of movement. They need to be directional. Just a note on all 3 of the main items for no gi jiu-jitsu, that's shorts, rash guards and spats, all of which could be considered gear or equipment, not really apparel, because they are a fundamental part of what we do in jiu-jitsu. The note is that there are items on the market which look very, very similar to these things, but they are not designed for jiu-jitsu, not really. You see some items even with jiu-jitsu written on them, again on those shopping channels that I've mentioned. They are not jiu-jitsu items. With the tops, you get dry fit tees. The material isn't the same. It's a light, moisture wicking material designed for running, field sports like soccer or football as we call it in England, but they are not that compression style or tight material. And it doesn't really stretch in the same way. It doesn't do the same job. So look out for that. It's not the same thing. And tend to be half the price. I will mention that. So if you see something that's too cheap, it's probably not fit for purpose. Secondly, you get compression wear. Now compression wear, the idea is to lock the muscles in. Now some compression wear is actually suitable for jiu-jitsu and can be used as such. Some of the high-end compression wear brands will work, but the cheaper ones will not. But bear in mind that they are not made of the exact same fabrics, so it's not necessarily perfect or absolutely fit for purpose. Generally speaking, when you're shopping for jiu-jitsu no gi gear, buy jiu-jitsu no gi gear. Lastly, with shorts, there are a whole range of jiu-jitsu MMA fight shorts out there. They're not all made equal. So when you're choosing these, have a good look around and make sure that you're buying something that is absolutely fit for purpose. Okay, so whilst I've covered the breadth of things which are absolutely essential for modern day jiu-jitsu training, I'm going to add a few things to your shopping list that you should definitely consider. The first one is If you haven't got something to put all of this in and you turn up with some shopping bag from the supermarket, you're going to look a little bit silly. So we have all sorts of different bags that are suitable for this type of kit. There are essentially two types of bags. You get the hold all or the backpack. Of course, this is just a preference. This one's styled very much for jiu-jitsu. If you're doing gi and no gi jiu-jitsu and you're not using equipment like you need for MMA, etc., etc., you know, you're not using gloves, shin guards, etc., then a hold all type gets you gear in it and out of it very quickly. However, if you're moving around for the rest of the day, maybe you live in an urban environment, you're getting on public transport, you might want the type of bag which is compartmentalized and can keep your gear separated from your day-to-day stuff and won't allow sweat from your training session to seep out into the rest of your bag. So kit bag, really important if you're regularly training in jiu-jitsu. Okay, next up, you are more than likely going to need a pair of these flip-flops. Now, whether you have sliders, flip-flops, whatever you want to call them, pair of sandals, it just allows easy on and off the mat without picking up germs, bacteria and dirt onto your bare feet and then walking them back onto the mat. If you do that regularly, I'm sure your instructor is going to start banging in that choke on you a little bit harder. So make sure you've got a pair of flip-flops. And lastly, for training in jiu-jitsu right from the start is a mouthpiece or gum shield. Although there's no striking in jiu-jitsu, the main reason that you need a mouth guard, especially when you're doing sparring or rolling, is a clash of the teeth when you get knocked from all different angles underneath or to the side of your jaw. They're not strikes, but you can get hit with just about anything. And I've seen people bash their mouths, break their teeth on more than one occasion simply through not wearing a mouthpiece. So make sure you pick up one of those before you start doing any regular rolling of any kind, and it can even happen in drilling. So if you're doing fast drills, it's all worth just popping in that mouth guard. Lastly, I'm going to mention a product that is not a Rev Gear product. These are called Willpower Bands. Now, this is a very long resistance band, and it's been designed in a way that you can do a whole variety of exercises for both strength, for additional power, and for stretching, which will aid your overall training and solo training. This is an excellent piece of equipment, and I would thoroughly recommend you checking them out if you're starting your jiu-jitsu journey. One other piece of equipment that I could mention is there are a wide variety of grappling dummies on the market. Now, they're absolutely useless unless you've got the space to work in them. Are they as good as a human opponent? Well, they've got their pros and cons. I made a whole video on this not so long ago. So if you're interested in doing some solo training or you've got the space to do it, getting yourself a motion master or a grappling dummy could be useful to you. I know this has been a long video, guys, but it's absolutely essential to get the right equipment when you're starting jiu-jitsu. Albeit there isn't a lot of equipment for jiu-jitsu, getting both the right equipment and to a degree the right amount of equipment is really important. Your gi in gi jiu-jitsu is your main piece of gear, and if you're training an awful lot, more than twice a week, let's say, then you're probably going to need two. Consider buying two right at the start if you're going to train twice or more a week. It takes a while to dry a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu jacket. Throwing them in the tumble dryer can be hazardous, so consider buying two right at the start, maybe buy different weight gis. If you're doing a lot of no gi, you're probably going to need 2 or 3 rash guards. You're probably going to need 2 or 3 pairs of shorts, almost for the same reason. Otherwise, you're going to be having to wash them on a nightly basis. So consider buying more than one right at the start. Don't forget your mouth guard, buy a good belt, and we'll see you in the next video.